What's up, fight fans? It is, Monday, the 12th of February, 2018, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Luke Thomas, and I am the host of this podcast. Not a moment to waste. I don't want to get into this extraneous conversation. Here's what we're going to talk about today. UFC 221 took place over the weekend. There was a bunch of great performances. Israel Adesanya looked amazing. Jake Matthews had a grown man performance. Curtis Blades had a tough but I thought hard-fought win over Mark Hunt. Tai Tuivasa drank out of a shoe. I mean, there was a lot to like, even if the card was not necessarily stacked with star power. But the fight I think we really have to focus in on, which was the one that really encompassed two of the seriously elite of their own division, was of course the main event. Luke Rockhold taking on Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero winning in the third round. I remember back when Chris Weidman fought Luke Rockhold, I thought, man, this is like peak middleweight MMA. Now Yoel Romero has knocked both of them out. Both, by the way, I believe in the third round. So here's the big question. How did he do it? What were the keys and the fundamentals here? I'm going to give you basically, there's more than this, but I'm going to give you three big reasons why it happened. There could be 4, 5, or even 6. I'm not saying it's only 3. I'm not saying a keener eye couldn't find extra reasons. There probably are. But I think I can point to at least 3 big ones that can help us all understand exactly what happened here. So without a moment's further notice, let's get right into it. Here are 3 big reasons why Yoel Romero defeated Luke Rockhold. In any fight of this magnitude that goes this long, which is not too long, but 2+ rounds, with fighters this good, there's always going to be more than 1 or 2 reasons why somebody won. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to give you 3. And of course, those 3 are not even really the full reason, but there are at least some big picture takeaways that we can look at and help us better understand what happened in this contest. Now, I talk about the first one, it seems like every week. The last time I talked about it in great detail was when Jeremy Stephens fought Doo Ho Choi. What was that? You'll recall it was how everything changes behind the 2 black lines. I just can't believe how much fighters turn into completely different people when they get pushed up against that cage. You'll note that Yoel Romero won basically 2 ways. One was that he took his time, then of course exploded, pushing Luke Rockhold back. If you think about the most meaningful offense that he landed, where was it? It was behind the 2 black lines up against the cage. It wasn't really in open space at all. In fact, he was sort of not killing time exactly, but he wasn't really doing anything super meaningful other than maybe disrupting rhythm or staying away from Luke Rockhold's better weapons for the most part. But he wasn't offensively doing a whole lot. That didn't happen until everything got shoved back. It's just kind of crazy how often that happens in mixed martial arts. The ability to exit off at an angle, the ability to jab at an angle, the ability to constantly set and create angles, and getting your back off the fence either from a takedown attempt or some kind of forward striking pressure is going to be critical moving forward for any fighter. So let's take a look at that first. All right, we're at 4:55. We're just going to talk through this, but pay attention to Luke Rockhold. You're going to see him jabbing, double jabbing here, and he's going to be cutting angles. Note how he is sometimes moving forward, a lot of times moving backwards, but look, jabbing and then circling out to his right. George St. Pierre was really good at this, right? Jabbing multiple times and then moving as a consequence. If you actually go back and listen to his corner audio, they're telling him every step you take should have a jab with it. Now, what they wanted him to do was, it sounded like if they got in close quarters or if you was pressuring too much, show him the knee to threaten him, or then clinch up directly if he could. You saw that at the beginning of the second round, he was able to do that. Now, there's more to the story than merely what Luke Rockhold's doing. We'll talk about Yoel Romero in a second, but just pay attention to Luke Rockhold here. He gets kind of caught there with that jab a little bit because some of his shot selection got a little bit repetitive, and you saw he went for a jab and then a hook following it up because he didn't want to get caught again, and you can see his hands are down pretty low. But for the most part, he's kind of staying active, and he's doing at least some of the right things in terms of staying in the center. He's going to get backed up here, and you're actually going to see him exit, which is one of the better parts about what happens here. Here he's getting kind of backed up a little bit, circling into the power hand, right? Getting a little bit dicey here, but he's going to see him showing the knee, threatening with the knee as Yoel got closer. That was a big part of the game plan. And now just sort of staying active, putting the jab in his face, moving away, right? Constantly in motion, constantly setting angles. And here he gets kind of backed up a little bit. You're going to see him exit, I think, at the end of a right hook, if not from this. There it is. That was nice by Luke Rockhold. That was the game plan. Exit off when he tries to pressure you forward and throws. And, of course, here comes the end. Double jab, boom. All right? And then he finishes him here. All right. So let's take a second, and we just saw what Luke Rockhold was trying to do. Let's talk about that for just a moment as I pause this video, and Yoel Romero is very happy. What can we say about that? You saw what was working for the most part with Luke Rockhold. It wasn't necessarily that it was landing so often that Yoel Romero was, had no idea where he was or was just getting absolutely pieced up. But it was at least keeping him in a safe spot. When he finally got pushed back behind the two black lines, and rather than trying to clinch up or threaten with a knee or just get in the gap, you saw what he did. He tried to catch Luke Rockhold with a bit of a right hand. He tried to catch Yoel Romero with a bit of right hand. Let's go back and look at this finish here for a little bit, and let's examine some of the better details that will tell us, I think, actually some of the big parts of the story of this fight. The big one, of course, is that everything changes behind the two black lines. Let's go back just a little bit further. All right, so here we go. Check this out just a little bit here. You're going to see him exit off of that. That was what Luke Rockhold needed to be doing the whole time. Brilliant job by him right there. If you got backed up a little bit, resetting, and it doesn't. Michael Bisping made a point that he wanted, if he was fighting Yoel Romero, to come to him so that you can absorb that forward pressure and counter it and then effectively get out of the way. I think that's a fine job and a good way to look at it if you're Michael Bisping. I don't know that it suits Luke Rockhold all that well, this being a perfect example of it. But I want to watch what happens here, right? And I'm going to show you the key to this here in just a second. All right, so here we are. So I want to stop it right there at 320. What do you see Yoel Romero doing here? Watch this. This is going to get us to our second part of this, which is that he won in part because he gets him on the two black lines, which we're going to see in just a second. We're going to put it all together. 2 is the unorthodox mixed direction. Look at this. Boom. Punch to the thigh. Right? I want you to look at that one more time. Right? Here we go. Punch to the thigh. And he did this a number of times in the fight. In fact, he even did a hammer fist, which we'll look at in just a second. But go back and look at this one more time. Boom. Punch to the thigh. And you look at Luke Rockhold, he looks down at it, and his hands come down just a little bit. Okay? Then he backs up straight. He's not setting angles. He kind of moves to his own left there a little bit. But watch this. Now he's behind the two black lines, and he gets jabbed. Okay? Then there's the other jab. He tries to get out of the way, and then he tries to meet him with a hook. Couple of problems with this. Number one, look how the hook is kind of telegraphed. He's actually going to bring it back, down, and then out. It's just too slow. The hand speed of Yoel Romero, both offensively and defensively, is actually really good. So this big wind-up, it just created too much time and space, and Yoel Romero was able to beat him to it. Here's the other one. Look closely at Yoel Romero here. Right? So we're behind the two black lines, and to throw a punch, like you're going to throw a hook, what do you have to do? You have to plant your feet. You see that? So now he's no longer on the move, because he's trying to offensively throw rather than waiting for Yoel Romero and then getting out of the way a la, let's say, Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey. So that's one problem. But I want to pay attention to one more thing. What did he do back here at 320? Right? What did he do? That. He punches him. One more time, look at the face of Yoel Romero here. So now what we have is he has set in mind he's punching the thigh. We've got him behind the two black lines. He's not looking to exit out. He's looking to catch a hook. The hook it's a big winding telegraphed hook, so it just takes time to get to Yoel Romero's face. Too much time, in fact. Watch Yoel Romero's face. He looks down here. He jabs, then jabs again, and then comes over. Look at this subtle movement one more time. And I want you to watch it in real time. Here we go. Actually, I'm going to do this. Back it up. Watch Yoel Romero. He's going to look down. You see that? Look. He looks down for just a second. He comes in, looks down. Look at that. Looking down, trying to tell Luke Rockhold, I'm going back to the thigh. The jab lands a little bit as a consequence. Luke gets out of the way a little bit, but it backs him up. Now Yoel Romero knows exactly where he is. He then takes a huge step in. Luke Rockhold sets his feet rather than trying to angle, rather than trying to clinch, rather than trying to close the space and jam him up, and then tries to counteract him in space, and as you see, it's just not quick enough. By the time he's throwing the hook, look here, he's throwing the hook, Yoel Romero already has his hand past his face trying to throw his own shot there. He just threw it way too late. Way too late. If you're going to do it, you have to do it like right in between the first of those. He doesn't throw it until the second one lands. Look at that. That's what I mean. He would have to throw it right here. Catch him. Check him, right? It's a check hook. He throws it way too late, and he just gets beat to the punch. So as you can see, you get behind the two black lines, and what happens? Your offense changes, your thought process changes, your footwork changes. Everything when you get pushed back there is surprisingly just different. Guys just become different people. We saw him exit out earlier, right? We saw him exit out earlier. Let's take a look at that one more time. I'm not sure exactly where that was. He gets caught a little bit, but he finds his way out. Show him in the knee, and then jabs his way out. Circles back. That's what he needed to be doing. He gets caught looking through the unorthodox mixed direction of Yoel Romero, gets pushed back. Let's see here, watch. This is going to be exactly what he needed to be doing. Here comes Yoel Romero, double jabbing, right? You see that? And look at that. Look at how different that was. That's like, oops, I went too far. That's exactly what he needed to be doing. Let's look at that one more time. That was what was missing here. And he was doing the game plan correctly. You see him showing him the knee, exiting out. Here comes Yoel Romero with a forward pressure. Let's see how this looks. Let's watch this one more time in slow motion when it gets close enough. Backing him up, backing him up. Watch this here. All right, he throws the hook, doesn't land. Check this out. Watch this. Yoel Romero jabbing, and then in between throws the hook, that same punch, his own, fakes it, and then gets out of the way. That's what he needed to be doing. You saw how much quicker he was in between the jabs. He threw the jab, threw the hook, didn't wait again. And then, of course, what I'm saying is he didn't wait for the second jab. Look one more time. All right, there's the first jab. Excuse me, one more time. Let's wind it back far enough. Here's Yoel Romero with the jab. Immediately throws the hook behind it. Immediately. Boom. Fakes it, waits, whoop, and he slips out of the way, and then creates the angle and gets out of the way. That's what needed to happen. And instead, he got pushed far back where he didn't begin to throw the hook till the second shot. But that was all set up by the misdirection of Yoel Romero. He doesn't come in, a double jab. Why would you double jab, by the way? You double jab to close the distance better, right? Because if you're jabbing and you're too far out, if you double or triple up on it, number one, you can cut angles, or you can get inside close enough. You're not getting inside enough on range. That doubling up with the jab allows you to do that. But look here. Look at that. Catches him, he looks down after throwing the shot the first time to the thigh, and then jab, pushes him back. Now he's in range, sort of hops inside. Luke Rockhold slips the second one, but at this point, it's already too late. He's already going to win that battle right there. And you can see he's even leaning as he gets off on the left hand. That's how he was able to do it, basically. But there's a few more details. But number one, pushing him back. Luke Rockhold, rather than sticking to the game plan, trying to exit out, or at least jam the space, he decides he's going to throw. He waits to throw on the second of the double jabs, so he gets beat to the punch, quite literally. And when guys get pushed behind those two black lines, they just sort of abandon themselves or the game plan. I think they need to have this thing where, you ever seen those memes where it's like the floor is lava or something? They got to treat the wall like it's lava sometimes, at least behind the two black lines. Once you're back there, your offense should be real minimal. And you can say, well, he threw the check hook the first time, or the other one he showed where he was able to get out. That's right, but he threw it right after the first one. He didn't wait till the second one. And you could say, well, why didn't he do that this time? Because I think that misdirection got him a little bit. When Yoel Romero looked down and telegraphed it a little bit, I think Luke Rockhold got stunned in space. That first jab land, he was already giddy hopping into the second one. That misdirection is pretty incredible. You think those punches to the thigh, they aren't really a whole lot, but they're way more than you think they are. So that's two big reasons. Getting pushed behind the two black lines, and how the offense of Yoel Romero relies not merely on misdirection, but really unorthodox mixed direction. He doesn't do common feints and setups. He's out there really innovating actually quite a little bit. Punches to the thigh, hammer fisting to the thigh. That's unusual. And then he follows it with his eyes as he then goes back to something conventional to get you reacting. But by the time you're reacting, he's one or quite literally two steps ahead of you. Let's look at one more thing I think is a big takeaway. So I put together a small little highlight here. Here's just the second round. This is just the second round, and not even the entire second round, of the defense of Yoel Romero. Look at how often he blocks by getting his hands up and crossed, how he keeps good defense here, how he parries shots with jabs. He'll down parry, he'll side parry. He'll do a lot of different parries. And why is he able to do that? Because, well, he's not really being all that offensive. He's minding his distance, so he's able to see the punches coming a little bit easier, and he's not really trying to throw back most of the time. He's just there blocking. He's sanding the floor. He's washing the cars. That's all he's really doing the whole time. As a consequence, Yoel Romero has excellent defense. Excellent defense. he really is able to avoid a lot of punishment by not only adopting a style where he doesn't have to overexert himself, but part of that overexertion is, if I'm not going to be striking, let me just block what you're doing. Let me disrupt your rhythm. Let me not let you accumulate damage, in the way that you want to, or set a rhythm in the way you want to. So he's disrupting rhythm, he's blocking shots, and he's not really taking a lot of damage because he's minding his range. He knows where he has to be, and he can just see the shots coming. Doesn't have to really worry about counter-striking. Watch this. Check this out. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is just the second round here. Let's watch this. Look at this. Blocking. Side parry. Down parry. Right? Block. Some of these sneak through. Blocking. Look at that. Catching hands. Blocking. Side parry. Scooping parry. Blocking. Parry. Blocking. Parry. Side parry. Side parry. Blocking. 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 Look at how many of these are not getting through. They're all bouncing off the arms because he's not really looking at it. You don't ever see him like throwing a lot of counter shots, do you? Occasionally he'll try. He just kind of absorbs it. It's unbelievable. Watch that one more time. This is all from the second round. Look at this. Scooping side parry, right? I think one of these jabs sneaks through. That one kind of sneaks through, but not very damaging. Look at that. He's catching hands, blocking. Luke Rockhold couldn't really ever get going. He couldn't ever land and put a whole lot behind it. So many of these just didn't go anywhere. This is all in the second round. Yes, a couple of shots got through in the second round. But look at how good the parrying and the defense is of Yoel Romero. Very little of it is actually landing. Look at this. It's all just bouncing off the arms. It's shocking. It's shocking. You never see guys like that who, you would say, well, he's a wrestler. He's not much of a striker. Yoel Romero is much more of a striker than we think he is. And I'm going to play it one more time as I talk over this. He's much more of a striker than we think he is. He has an excellent ability to set up strikes, to know when it's his time to throw strikes, to take energy, resource management seriously, to stick. He just knows what he's good at and sticks to it. And what he's good at is being explosive and unorthodox and quick, and then finding just the right timing. But he understands spatial distances. He understands spatial requirements to get his best offense to come to life. Yoel Romero has great defense and great offense, in part because he has such an unusual style. Most guys want to block and then counter, right? Most guys want to get out of the way and counter, or be first. He doesn't really care about any of that. He just kind of waits until you're not really minding your P's and Q's. He's pushing you back, and then all of a sudden you're waking up looking at the lights. Pretty incredible. So here's three reasons why Yoel Romero won this fight. Number one, everything changes behind the two black lines. Number two, the unorthodox misdirection that he used to set that up with that thigh punch, which he had done several times in the course of that contest. And then thirdly, he's able to disrupt rhythm and not take a lot of abuse, if hardly any abuse, by blocking, waiting, and then, of course, exploding there in the end. Not merely with those blitzes, but you saw with those double jabs, managing his own distance. He just has a real good sense. And by the way, when he's blocking all of those, maybe he's not extending and countering, but he's also getting a good sense of, number one, Luke Rockhold's shot selection, and number two, his own distance and where he needs to be. So when you're constantly blocking, you're also getting a good sense of your opponent. And maybe not the best sense as you would be if you were landing on him, but it's helpful. It can actually aid you in understanding where you need to ultimately be to land your shot when it's your time to go. Very, very unusual to see a guy like this to just not throw. Take his time. Measure, block, disrupt, get out of the way, block, boom, go. With a double jab, then an overhand left as he times it up by setting it up with a thigh punch, looking down, and then coming straight in. That's crazy. One more detail we'll go over here in just a second. Now, for this last detail, I actually don't have any footage to give you because, well, there is no footage. Luke Rockhold didn't wrestle Yoel Romero at all. And that's an interesting, I think, and a ultimately poor choice that was made. Now, I partly understand it. You know how many guys have level changed into Yoel Romero and paid for it. Chris Weidman is a very notable example. So that's something. But at the same time, you go back and you look at the fights where he did forget the Feijiao fight, but you look at the Tim Kennedy fight, which I think a lot of people thought he would have lost if it had gone on any longer, in terms of before the round ended and the whole stool incident. But he was getting tuned up there a little bit. And the other one, of course, is the Robert Whittaker fight. Now, what do you notice from both of those contests? In part, in the Whittaker fight, it was Romero trying to wrestle. But you go back and you watch the Kennedy fight, Kennedy was trying to make Romero wrestle. And you can say, well, he didn't get very close. I mean, Romero stuffed all the shots. and he was getting tuned up a little bit. Tim Kennedy was, to some extent. However, I think Tim Kennedy had the right idea. Tim Kennedy was making him work. And in the case of Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero was sort of almost making himself work. But the point still stands. If you just let Yoel Romero block, parry, and then wait until he's got you behind the two black lines to then explode on you, it's not going to go that well for you. You got to make him work. He is trying to conserve energy, so you have to make him spend it. Now, it's true that if Luke Rockhold just casually tried to level change into him, he probably would have been kneed pretty badly. But okay, was the way he chose a whole lot better? Not necessarily. More to the point, we talked about those situations where he was getting pushed behind the two black lines and he was showing him the knee. That's one way to help yourself get out. The other one is to just jam the space. You saw in that early blitz in the second round, what did he do? He clinched behind the head of Yoel Romero. I think that's going to be important, or it would have been important to have done a second time. Really get in there and close that gap. So what, you don't take Yoel Romero down? You have to make him wrestle. You have to make him work. That's way more taxing on him than just blocking and parrying and then bop, and then here comes the living, hand of death. I think that was a technical error here. Just trying to be on your horse the whole time is hard to do. I think it takes a lot of practice. I don't think that's the way Luke Rockhold normally likes to fight anyway. And I think mixing it up probably would have been a bit of a better, place to be, even if none of those takedown attempts work. So what? By round 3, he would have been huffing and puffing. It may have been a completely different fight. Just letting him take his time and parrying and then finding his own moments later on after he shoved you back a little bit, not a great idea. I think going forward, opponents know it doesn't matter if you beat Romero in those individual wrestling scrambles. You have to make him wrestle. You cannot allow him, however you're going to do that, to conserve energy. And that's especially true if you're not landing on him because he's parrying shots. It's not taking anything out of him. Those shots to the gut, they're only landing a little bit. Those shots to the face, he's either getting out of the way or they're not landing at all. You're not draining him. You got to drain this guy, because if you just get this Hercules by round 3, it's going to be a bad day. It's going to be a real bad day. So you have to find a way to make this guy work. And this, of course, is easier said than done. Maybe it's why only guys like Robert Whitaker have ever been successfully able to do it, or Tim Kennedy getting pretty close. You got to be a super outstanding middleweight, and you have to have an incredible game plan. But it should be noted, not wrestling Yoel Romero, especially if he's blocking a lot of your shots, he is going to have a lot more energy to do a lot more damage a lot longer in a fight. And that's why I think he won on Saturday. And last but not least, we'll take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead. 2 cards coming your way this weekend. First of all, on Friday night will be Bellator from the Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. Matt Mitrione takes on Roy Nelson. This will be the next stage in the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix. Then you're going to have Patricky Freire taking on Derek Campos. Liam McGeary against Vadim Nemkov. Heather Hardy is going to take on Anna, I don't pronounce her name correctly, I'm sure, Julaton. Remember, this is the first half of the boxing MMA co-pairing they're going to have. This, of course, will be the MMA side of things. And then Taiwan Claxton taking on Jose Antonio Perez. Then, of course, on Sunday night, not Saturday, UFC Fight Night 126, Cowboy versus Medeiros. That's going to be your main event. Of course, this will be in Austin, Texas at the Frank Irwin Center. Derek Lewis taking on Marcin Tybura. James Vick versus Massaranduba. Thiago Alves versus Curtis Melender. I'm not sure who Jessica Aguilar is fighting. Let me look that up here very quickly. I should know that. I think she's fighting... Let's see. That's right. Livia Hanata Souza from Invicta, who's a beast. Sage Northcutt taking on Thibaut Gouti. That's your main card. Then Jared Gordon taking on Carlos Diego Ferreira. Brian Camozzi versus Jeffrey Neal. Roberto Sanchez versus Joby Sanchez. I do not think they are related. Sarah Morris taking on Lucy Pudilova. Steven Peterson versus Brandon Davis. That's Fight Pass. And then Alex Moreno taking on Josh Berkman. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What comments do you have? Shoot me an email, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. Appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, enjoy the fights.